The morning sun hung low over the South China Sea on August 13, 2025, turning the water into molten glass. 12 miles west of Scarborough Shoal, the Arleigh Burke-class destroyer USS Higgins cut a perfectly straight line through the swell at 18 knots, her wake arrow straight, almost arrogant in its confidence. No one on her bridge was smiling. They didn't need to. They knew something the approaching Chinese warship did not. Closing fast from the east was the PLA Navy's Type 052D destroyer Guilin, hull number 164, still carrying fresh scars from her own collision 2 days earlier. She was running at 28 knots, bow high, spraying white water like an angry animal. Her four-panel Type 346 AAESA radar was already screaming across the airwaves, bathing the Higgins in enough raw electromagnetic power to make the American destroyer's threat receivers howl in protest. Most captains would have turned away. Most crews would have felt the first cold twist of fear. The Higgins did neither, because this wasn't just a warship sailing alone. This was the sharpest tip of a spear the Chinese had never truly seen. An invisible lattice of satellites, P-8 Poseidons circling at 300 miles, E-2D Hawkeyes overhead, global hawks in the stratosphere, and submarines listening in the deep, all feeding data into one single, seamless picture. The Guilin thought she was hunting a lone destroyer. In reality, she had just stepped into a live-fire intelligence collection exercise run by the entire United States Indo-Pacific Command. And the Higgins was the bait. Let that sink in for a second. Beijing had spent years telling the world these waters belonged to China. They demanded prior permission for innocent passage, drew imaginary lines on maps, and sent Coast Guard cutters and militia boats to harass fishermen and foreign navies alike. So the United States did what it has always done when someone tries to lock up the global commons. It sent a warship straight down the throat of the claim, on a perfectly legal transit, daring China to do something about it. This was the moment of truth.
I need to know what you would have done right then. You're the captain of the Higgins. You've got 350 sailors behind you, 8,500 tons of steel under your feet, and a Chinese destroyer is cutting across your bow so close you can see the whites of their eyes. Rules of the road say you're in the right, but one tiny mistake and it's an international incident, or worse. Do you hold course all the way and trust your EW suite to make them blink first? Or do you twitch the rudder just 5 degrees to be safe? Drop your answer in the comments right now. Hold course or twitch the rudder, and tell me why. I'm pinning the answers that surprise me the most. Alright, ego check over. Let's get back. The Guilin's captain clearly thought intimidation would work. He pushed his ship into a hard starboard turn, cutting directly across the Higgins' bow in a classic chicken maneuver, close enough that you could have thrown a baseball from one bridge wing to the other. It was the same reckless move that had already cost him a chunk of his own bow 2 days earlier when he accidentally rammed his own Coast Guard escort. On the Guilin's bridge, chaos erupted. Shouted orders in Mandarin, red-faced officers slamming throttles, the helmsman spinning the wheel so hard the deck heeled violently. Senior Lieutenant Wei Chen, the officer of the deck, stared through the windows and suddenly realized the American ship wasn't slowing down, wasn't turning, wasn't even blinking. 8,500 tons of grey steel kept coming, steady as a freight train. Inside the Higgins Combat Information Center, the atmosphere was ice-cold calm. Red lighting, quiet voices, the soft beeps from consoles. Lieutenant Commander Vance, the tactical action officer, watched the range drop. 4,000 yards. 3,000. 2,000. His hand rested lightly on the fire inhibit switch, but he never even considered flipping it, because the plan was never to fire a shot. At exactly 0801 local time, the Higgins ANSLQ-32V6 Sidekick electronic warfare suite, one of the most classified systems in the fleet, reached out and touched the Guilin's Type 346A radar like a ghost slipping a knife between ribs. It didn't jam with brute force. That would have been crude. Instead, it whispered thousands of perfectly crafted ghost targets into the Chinese radar's brain. SM-6 missiles leaping from the horizon, harpoons skimming the wave tops, even fake submarine-launched cruise missiles popping up from below. For 5 endless seconds, the Guilin's billion-dollar combat system drowned in digital chaos. Clear screens turned into blinding snowstorms of false returns. Alarms screamed. The radar picture dissolved into meaningless noise.
Senior Lieutenant Wei Chen lost situational awareness in the blink of an eye. He no longer knew how far away the Higgins actually was, how fast she was closing, or whether missiles were really inbound. Panic is contagious, and on a warship it spreads at the speed of sound.
"Rudder hard to port! Emergency breakaway!" he screamed into the voice pipe. The Guilin whipped into a desperate high-speed turn, engines roaring, deck tilting 30 degrees, nearly rolling her gunnels under. She ran from her own shadow. The Higgins never altered course by a single degree. She sailed straight through the spot the Guilin had just vacated, as if the Chinese destroyer had never even existed. And that was it. No shots fired, no missiles launched, no blood spilled. Just 5 seconds of clean, surgical, electromagnetic dominance. And one of the PLA Navy's most advanced warships humiliated herself in front of the entire watching world. But the real victory wasn't the retreat. It was what the Higgins took with her. Every watt of power the Guilin poured into her radar, every frantic course change, every shouted order, every spike of emission as her crew panicked. All of it was recorded in exquisite detail. The Sidekick suite logged the exact frequencies where the Type 346A radar falters under stress, the precise pulse repetition rates it uses when scared, the way its processors choke on deceptive jamming at certain power levels.
That data package, worth more than the cost of a dozen destroyers, was encrypted and fired up Link 16 before the Guilin even finished her embarrassing 180-degree turn. Within minutes, it was in the hands of analysts at Pacific Fleet Headquarters, the National Security Agency, and every ally from Japan to Australia. Now every future US missile, every software update to the Aegis system, every electronic warfare pod on every F-35 in the theatre will carry a tiny piece of the Guilin's humiliation coded into its DNA. The next time a Type 052D tries to play games, the response won't take 5 seconds. It'll be instantaneous. This is modern naval warfare at its most terrifying. The side that knows you better than you know yourself has already won before the first move is made. China wanted to prove the South China Sea was its lake. Instead, in one quiet morning off Scarborough Shoal, a single American destroyer turned their most advanced warship into an unwilling teacher. And the lesson was brutal. How many more billion-dollar warships will Beijing sacrifice on the altar of arrogance before they finally understand?